And now, a toast from the groom's cousin, Jake. I watched my cousin stumble toward the microphone, holding what was probably his 8th whiskey and coke. My new wife Emily squeezed my hand and whispered, "This should be interesting." She had no idea how interesting it was about to get. Jake grabbed the microphone, swaying slightly. His tie loosened and his face flushed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his words slightly slurred, "I've known my cousin Marcus since we were kids. We got in trouble together, played football together, chased girls together." The guests laughed. I relaxed slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. "And now he's married to this beautiful woman," Jake continued, gesturing toward Emily with his glass. "Beautiful, successful, perfect. Everyone thinks she's perfect." Something in his tone changed. Emily's hand tensed in mine. "You know what's crazy, though?" Jake said, his voice getting louder. "My boy here doesn't even know his bride has been fucking his best man for the past 6 months. The room went completely silent. 200 people froze, drinks halfway to their mouths, forks suspended over plates. The DJ's music had stopped. Everyone was staring. Should I tell him? Or... Jake continued, looking directly at me. "Oh wait, I just did." And that's when my perfect wedding day imploded in front of everyone I'd ever known. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how my drunk cousin destroyed my wedding by telling me a truth that nobody else had the courage to share. The day had started perfectly. I woke up in my best man Ryan's apartment where I'd stayed the night before. Tradition. Not seeing the bride before the wedding. We'd had a few beers, played video games, and talked about how lucky I was to be marrying Emily. "She's amazing, man," Ryan had said. "You two are perfect together." Looking back, I want to vomit at how he said that to my face while he'd been sleeping with my fiancée. The ceremony was beautiful. Emily looked stunning in her wedding dress, walking down the aisle with her father. I remember feeling like the luckiest man alive as she reached the altar. She was beautiful, successful, funny, and she'd chosen me. We'd been together for 3 years, met through mutual friends, dated for 2 years, got engaged, and spent the last year planning this perfect wedding. Everything had gone smoothly, no cold feet, no drama, no red flags that I could see. The ceremony went off without a hitch. We said our vows, exchanged rings, kissed, while everyone cheered. The photos took forever, but they were going to be beautiful. By the time we got to the reception, I was riding high on happiness and champagne. The reception venue was incredible, a restored barn with string lights, flowers everywhere, and a dance floor that was already packed. Our first dance went perfectly. Dinner was delicious. The speeches from Emily's father and my mother were touching and funny. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then came the open bar portion of the evening. Jake was my cousin on my mother's side, 3 years younger than me. We'd grown up together, more like brothers than cousins. He was the wild one in the family, always getting into trouble, always saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, always the life of the party. He'd been drinking heavily since the cocktail hour started. I'd noticed but hadn't worried too much about it. Jake was always a bit of a mess at family events. It was just who he was. What I didn't know was that Jake had seen something he wasn't supposed to see. Later, he told me the full story. About 3 months before the wedding, he'd stopped by my apartment unannounced, planning to surprise Emily and me with tickets to a football game. I wasn't home. I was at work. But Emily was there, so is Ryan. Jake let himself in with the spare key I'd given him, which I'd told him was for emergencies only, but Jake had loose definitions. He walked in and heard sounds coming from the bedroom. Thinking maybe Emily was on a phone call or watching TV, he headed toward the bedroom to let her know he was there. That's when he saw them through the partially open bedroom door. Emily and Ryan, in my bed. Jake had frozen, not knowing what to do. He'd quietly left the apartment, his mind reeling. Should he tell me? Should he confront them? What the hell was he supposed to do with this information? He decided to keep quiet, hoping it was a one-time thing that would end on its own. But then he started paying attention, watching. He saw the way Emily and Ryan looked at each other at family dinners, the way they'd both suddenly have errands to run at the same time, the way they'd exchange glances when they thought no one was watching. And as the wedding got closer, Jake's conscience. Should he tell me and potentially ruin the wedding? What if he was wrong? What if there was an explanation? He went back and forth, agonizing over what to do. Then came the wedding day, and Jake made the brilliant decision to drink his feelings. By the time the toast started, he was drunk enough to have lost his filter, but sober enough to remember what he'd seen. And when he grabbed that microphone, 3 months of keeping a secret came pouring out. After Jake's announcement, Time seemed to move in slow motion. I turned to look at Emily, who had gone completely pale. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I looked at Ryan, my best man, who was standing just a few feet away. His face had gone from tan to gray. He took a step backward, like he was considering running. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. 200 people, my family, Emily's family, our friends, our co-workers, all staring at us, waiting to see what would happen next. My mother was the first to react. "Jake!" she shouted. "What is wrong with you? How dare you?" "It's true," Jake interrupted, still holding the microphone. His drunk confidence was fading, replaced by a look of regret mixed with defiance. "I saw them 3 months ago in Marcus's apartment. In his bed." Emily found her voice. "Jake, you're drunk. You don't know what you're talking about." "I'm drunk," Jake agreed, "but I'm not blind. I saw you. Both of you." He pointed at Ryan. "You're supposed to be his best friend." Man, what the hell? Ryan still hadn't said anything. He just stood there, looking like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Is it true?" I asked Emily, my voice surprisingly calm. "Marcus, please, not here," she started. "Is IT true?" I shouted, and the room seemed to shrink. She started crying. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. And how long?" Demanda. She didn't answer, so I turned to Ryan. "How long?" Ryan finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "About 6 months. 6 months. Half a year, while we were planning our wedding, choosing flowers and cake flavors and seating charts. My fiancé had been sleeping with my best friend. All those times you two went to check out venues together," I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "All those vendor meetings you needed Ryan's help with." "Marcus, I love you," Emily started. "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't you dare say you love me. You don't betray people you love. You don't fuck their best friend while planning a wedding with them." Someone's grandmother gasped at my language. I didn't care. What followed was probably the most uncomfortable 10 minutes in wedding history. 200 people watched as my marriage imploded before it even really began. Emily tried to explain, her words tumbling over each other. "It just happened. We didn't plan it. We tried to stop, but you didn't stop," I finished. "You kept going, right up until today, apparently. Were you planning to keep sleeping with him after we got married?" She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. I turned to Ryan. "Anything you want to say?" "I'm sorry," he said weakly. "I'm so sorry, man. It was wrong. I know it was wrong. You were my best man," I said, my voice breaking. "I chose you to stand next to me today because you were my closest friend. I trusted you more than anyone." "I know," he said, tears running down his face now. "I'm sorry." "Stop saying you're sorry," I shouted. "Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of betrayal. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you've been lying to my face while sleeping with my fiancé." Emily's mother stood up. "Perhaps we should all take a moment to calm down." Calm down. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. My cousin just exposed my wife's affair with my best man in front of 200 people at my wedding reception. Exactly how calm do you expect me to be? My father appeared at my side. "Son, let's go somewhere private." "Why?" I asked. "Everyone already knows. The secret's out. Might as well have the full confrontation right here." Emily reached for my hand. "Marcus, please, can we talk about this alone? We can work through this." I pulled my hand away. "Work through this?" "Emily, you've been cheating on me for half a year with my best friend. You walked down that aisle and said vows to me this afternoon while you were having an affair. There's nothing to work through, but I love you." "No, you don't," I said firmly. "People who love each other don't do this." I don't know what this was, but it wasn't love. I left. Just walked out of my own wedding reception, still in my tuxedo, while 200 people watched. My father followed me, but I told him I needed to be alone. I drove to a hotel, checked in, and sat in the dark room for hours, still in my wedding clothes, trying to process what had just happened. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts from my parents, from friends, from relatives. I ignored them all, except for one text from Jake. "I'm sorry, man. I know I did it wrong, but you deserve to know. I couldn't watch you marry her knowing what I knew." I didn't respond, but he was right. As terrible as his timing and delivery were, he'd told me something that nobody else had the courage to share. How many people at that wedding had known or suspected? How many had seen Emily and Ryan together and said nothing? The next day, I learned that the reception had essentially ended after I left. People had awkwardly finished their drinks and left. The DJ had packed up early. The carefully planned timeline for cutting the cake, the bouquet toss, the lasnacy, none of it happened. Emily had tried to follow me when I left, but her parents had stopped her. Ryan had disappeared quickly, probably to avoid the angry relatives who were ready to confront him. And Jake, the drunk messenger who'd started it all, had sobered up quickly when he realized the magnitude of what he'd just done. The next few weeks were a blur of difficult conversations and painful decisions. Emily wanted to talk, to explain, to try to salvage something, but I was done. The marriage was annulled. We'd never even spent our wedding night together, so legally it was like it never happened. All those wedding gifts had to be returned. All those thank you cards that Emily had started writing had to be destroyed. The honeymoon to Hawaii that we were supposed to leave for 2 days after the wedding was canceled, I had to tell the story over and over to my parents, to my siblings, to friends who'd been at the wedding. Each time was humiliating. Each time I had to relive that moment when Jake grabbed the microphone and my entire life changed. But I also learned some things. I learned that several people at the wedding had suspected something was going on between Emily and Ryan. They'd seen glances, noticed the chemistry, picked up on small things, but nobody had said anything because they weren't sure, or because they didn't want to get involved, or because they thought it wasn't their business. Jake had been the only one willing to speak up, even if his method was spectacularly bad. A few weeks after the wedding, Jake came to see me. He was sober, remorseful, and more serious than I'd ever seen him. "I'm sorry about how I did it," he said. "I know that was the worst possible way to tell you. I was drunk and stupid, and I just... It came out. Why didn't you tell me before?" I asked. "You had 3 months." "I didn't know if I should," he admitted. "At first, I thought maybe it was a one-time thing and I'd ruin your relationship over nothing. Then, as time went on, I kept thinking maybe they'd end it before the wedding. I didn't want to be the guy who destroyed your happiness if there was a chance it would work out. But then came the wedding day. I said, yeah," he sighed, "and I was drinking, thinking about how you were marrying someone who was cheating on you, and how I knew and wasn't saying anything. It was eating me alive. Marcus. Every toast that was given, every speech about how perfect you two were together, I was sitting there knowing the truth. And then they handed me the mic, and I was drunk enough to think that speaking up was the right thing to do. It was the right thing," I told him. "Your timing and delivery sucked, but you were right to tell me. I should have done it privately," he said, "beforehand. I should have pulled you aside weeks ago and just told you what I saw." "Maybe," I agreed, "but you didn't, and as humiliating as that was, at least now I know the truth. At least I didn't marry her and spend years being lied to." Jake looked relieved that I wasn't angry at him. "For what it's worth, I'm really sorry about all of it. You deserved better." "I did," I said, "but at least I found out before it was too late." In the aftermath, more details emerged about Emily and Ryan's affair. Apparently, it had started innocently, or so they claimed. Ryan had been helping Emily with wedding planning stuff, and they'd spent a lot of time together. Then one night, after a vendor meeting, they'd kissed. Then the kiss became more... They swore it was just physical, that they both loved me and never meant to hurt me. They tried to end it multiple times, but kept being drawn back together. They'd planned to stop before the wedding and never speak of it again. But the affair had continued right up until the wedding day. The night before, while I was at Ryan's apartment for a guy's night, Emily was supposedly at home relaxing. According to my cousin, who'd been watching more carefully than I realized, she wasn't at home. Her car was parked outside Ryan's apartment complex for 3 hours. My best man and my bride had been together the night before our wedding. That revelation hurt almost as much as the initial discovery. They couldn't even stay away from each other for one night. They couldn't let me have that one final night of innocence before I married her. Emily tried to explain herself through emails and texts since I refused to see her in person. She claimed she loved me but felt confused about her feelings. She said Ryan made her feel exciting and alive in a way our relationship didn't anymore. She blamed the affair on pre-wedding stress, on cold feet, on confusion about commitment. She never quite took full responsibility for deliberately choosing to betray me for 6 months. She also tried to blame Jake for how things ended. "We could have worked through this privately," she wrote, "but he humiliated you in front of everyone. That wasn't fair." She was right that Jake's revelation was public and humiliating, but she was wrong that it was his fault. The humiliation was a consequence of her actions, not Jake's. She'd created the situation. He'd just exposed it. Eventually, Emily and Ryan ended up together officially. They dated for about a year before breaking up. According to mutual friends, once the affair wasn't forbidden and exciting anymore, they realized they didn't actually have much in common. Funny how that works. It's been almost 2 years since the worst wedding toast in history. I've moved on in a lot of ways, though the experience definitely left scars. I'm more cautious now about trust. I pay attention to red flags I might have ignored before. I ask more questions. I'm less naive about people's capacity for deception, but I'm also grateful, in a weird way, grateful that I found out when I did rather than years into the marriage. Grateful for Jake's drunk honesty, even though his delivery was terrible. Grateful that I didn't waste more time on someone who didn't value our relationship. Jake and I are actually closer now than we were before. He's gotten his drinking under control. That wedding was apparently a wake-up call for him too. And he's become someone I can rely on. Turns out the family wildcard has more integrity than the people I thought were trustworthy. I'm dating again, slowly. It's hard to open up to someone new when you've been burned like I was, but I'm working on it. The wedding video exists somewhere, though I've never watched it and never will. I'm sure that footage of Jake's toast has been shared and talked about. I'm sure my wedding is remembered in my family and friend circles as that wedding where the drunk cousin exposed the bride's affair. But you know what? I'd rather be known for the wedding that ended in disaster than for the marriage that would have been built on lies. This experience taught me several things. First, that affairs often have accomplices, people who know or suspect but stay silent. Multiple people at my wedding had noticed things between Emily and Ryan but said nothing. Their silence enabled the betrayal to continue. Second, that sometimes the truth comes from unexpected sources. I never would have thought drunk cousin Jake would be the one to expose my fiance's affair. But sometimes the messenger isn't who you expect. Third, that timing is everything. Yes, finding out at my wedding was humiliating and terrible. But finding out before I actually married Emily saved me from a much worse situation. And finally, that integrity matters more than comfort. Jake could have stayed quiet, avoided the awkwardness. Let me marry Emily in ignorance. But he spoke up, even though it was uncomfortable and messy. That took a kind of courage I hadn't appreciated before. So here's my question for all of you. If you were in Jake's position, if you knew your cousin or friend was being cheated on, would you tell them? And if so, how would you do it? Because while I'm grateful Jake told me the truth, I'm still not sure if there was a better way to handle it. Let me know in the comments what you would have done.